It may have been a long break for the Florida Panthers and the rest of the NHL, but on Thursday night against Toronto, we saw a familiar type of game.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, February 27th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the nation's #1 sports podcasting network, and it is your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at Monoman12. And joining me for today's edition of the show is Nich Fairbanks. You could follow him at Prudentia0, joining us for another edition of Fairbanks Friday. Shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So the Florida Panthers were back in action after a few weeks off after the Olympic break, welcoming their 10 Olympians back to Sunrise, and then in a pregame ceremony where they were celebrating Matthew Tkachuk, Bill Zito, head equipment manager Teddy Ridges, and then bringing Austin Matthews for the ceremonial puck drop. The Florida Panthers were right on top of their game as they lived in the Leafs zone through almost the entirety of the first period, and scored 3 times as the Panthers broke it open. And then the Leafs, although they tilted the ice, Sergei Bobrovsky was on his game, and then the Panthers added 2 empty netters at the end. And as they defeated the Toronto Maple Leafs by a final score of 5-1. And Nick, this is the type of game that you have to be really impressed by for this Florida Panthers team. We saw a group that looked refreshed, along with the guys who were still playing hockey during their time in Milan, and really goes to show how when you have a lot of time to think from the last loss that they suffered in Tampa Bay before the break, man, did they come out guns blazing and really get in on their forecheck to really live in the Leafs zone.
Yeah, it was a complete 180 response to what the Toronto Maple Leafs did, not only last night, but coming into this game completely flat, turning the puck over. So to me, that shows me that this team believes that they still have a shot, that they can still make it. And the other team just they know where they're at. And I think they are just reside to the fact that they're not going to make it. Now, I'd rather be on the side of Florida. I'm still hopeful. I still believe that they are going to make the playoffs. It's going to be a tall task, but if there was a team between the two right now that could make a push, that has the depth and the people that are coming back, it would definitely be the Panthers. But I think they showed tonight specifically that they are for real, and even though they're not fully healthy yet, that they can still play the style that they want to.
Yeah, and we'll discuss more about the health updates in segment number 3. Spoiler alert there, but really the difference between this multi-goal lead that the Panthers had, where they scored 3 different ways for them. Brad Marchand with the first one, Carter Verhaeghe on the power play, and then Evan Rodrigues with that amazing shorthanded goal, intercepting William Nylander right at the neutral zone. And then in the first one, Joseph Wall is unable to clear the puck, and then a great pinch by Uvis Balinskis that created that turnover, and then Brad Marchand with a lot of space in front, and then lots of space for Carter Verhaeghe as the Leafs were drawing towards Evan Rodrigues. But really, we saw a lot of drawing towards certain players, where leaving someone off puck open, even including the Mackie Samoskevich goal that was waved off, which happened because Morgan Riley not only fell, but him falling caused Brandon Carlo to fall, which allowed for that opportunity, which eventually called off for offside. But for the Panthers, the fact that they were consistently getting in on the puck retrievals when there was a shot, rebound opportunity, they were the first ones there. They were as soon as they saw the puck bounce, their eyes were like wide open and say, "Okay, go skate, go retrieve the puck." battle along the walls, backhand it back to the point, go D to D, and then work that same shot again. And also whenever the Toronto Maple Leafs tried gaining the blue line, it was met with closing the gap, and then it was quick on from their tape out of their stick to at least get up to speed and move north. So that was another thing that I took away from this kind of game. And I thought it was very reminiscent to game 7 in 2025 against these same Leafs. At one point, the shot attempts were 26-4. In game 7, it was 20-0 before Toronto got a shot. So it was not necessarily the same thing, but that it kind of brought me back to that.
Definitely. And don't remind the Leaf fans about game 5 or game 7. That's still sore, even though Canada just also got the silver medal. So, yeah, they were a little touchy tonight. I felt that the Panthers D played very well, and the forwards helped them to close off the blue line. The only time that Toronto was able to even be successful is actually when they chipped it in, or they were able to get a guy towards the blue line that just literally just tipped it in. So your Nylanders, your who do they have still? Matthews, obviously. You're not going to be able to stick, or dangle around, 4 or 5 guys standing out the blue line. You got to chip, you got to chase, you got to play the way the Panthers want you to play. And if you can be faster, which the Leafs are not right now, you can tell that they're tired, or they just, as I said, they're resigned to their fate. There's just not a lot of push there. So it made it easier for the Panthers to defend. But, as a team, like, you have to figure that out in the first period. Now, the Leafs did come out in the second and third period, a little bit better, and they did kind of tilt the ice. But at the end of the day, Florida didn't steer away from, what their identity is and everything. And again, they held the fort. They held the lead finally, and they were able to close this one out, thankfully, with 2 empty netters.
I felt so much differently about this multi-goal lead versus the ones that they saw before before the Olympic break against Boston and Buffalo, because I just thought that they were just so slow to the puck, and even when in their own D zone when they were skating out, it just didn't see a lot of confidence when they were trying to nail out their stretch passes out of their own end. Neither. And again, the Toronto's trying to possibly make over their blue line over these last over the next week, possibly, as far as the rumors based on trades. But Sergei Bobrovsky, let's talk about some of how he fared during the second and third period. I mean, where you were tilting, the ice was tilted back into Toronto's favor, and the fact that for Florida, they just had to keep gaining the red line and shoot in. And also, if it was late in shifts, make sure to get the next line going there. But the times that the Sergei Bobrovsky was reading those deflections, I mean, there was a double deflection once. There was the fact that the blue line didn't really give away breakaway opportunities, with the exception of one. And the one Nylander breakaway that they had, Evan Rodrigues was right there, back checking, closed it out as he was shifting to his left. And then when it was worked back to Simon Benoit, right there, no rebound, able to get a draw in their own end. That is just textbook hockey. And speaking of Evan Rodrigues, nine shots on goal in the game, 7 of them coming in the first period. That's the first time that's happened in the first period for the Panthers. Someone getting 7 in 25 years, by the way, according to NHL PR. So just incredible, the fact that the Panthers were still getting the sticks in lanes, and also the fact that Sergei Bobrovsky wasn't giving up those second chance opportunities.
No, it's almost as if Bob needed a break. He needed time away. He needed time to recenter himself and re-energize himself. And the fact that he was able to read a lot of those deflections. I mean, he even had one in the first period that looked like it was going in, and he was able to get, like, I think part of his, forearm on it, and, was able to deflect it away. But I've always said this about Bob. When he's controlling the puck and he's not allowing all these egregious rebounds like he was earlier in the first few years with Florida, he is probably one of the top goaltenders in the whole NHL, right? So he's the guy that we come to lean on and really, I guess, respect. Just because, when he's on top of his game, he is one of the best. And I think he just needed to get back to that and kind of like clear his mind. And, luckily, it took 3 weeks and he got plenty of that, and he looked like the Bob that we've come to get used to, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and then reading some of those cross-ice feeds, there was one that was fed to Matthias Michelli as well. So that's a he's also that break also helped him when it comes to just reading some of those plays and also able to close the 5 hole when necessary. Although it didn't happen on that one power play goal, which went off of the stick of Forsling and then off the skate. But hey,
Oh,
when the only goal that you give up is on the power play, it just goes to show what kind of night that the rest of the team had for them, as again out of reach from basically 13 minutes in to this game, and Florida was just able to cruise the rest of the way out. But we got a lot more to get to on today's edition of the show, where we're going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and then the moment when we knew the game was won. We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. And workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on, all you need is right there. This is a job for Indeed's sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, and location. So you're not just hoping for the right candidates that stumbles across your post. And here's the stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit that helps your job get premium status it deserves on Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And thank you guys once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on the Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. And make sure you join our Everydayer Club. You can get an ad-free audio edition of the show and access to our group chat on Discord and more. Use code DEADLINE ahead of the NHL trade deadline for 1 month free. Click the link in the show notes to learn more. So continuing on this edition of the show, as the Florida Panthers defeated the Toronto Maple Leafs by a final score of 5-1 from Sunrise, as now they are just 1 game away from tying the season series, as the Panthers' record has not been great against the Atlantic Division this year. That's really has been truly their downfall in a season like this for the Panthers. But it's a win. We don't complain about wins, obviously, here on the show. So this is the time where we're going to discuss our 3 stars of the game and then the moment when we knew the game was won. So for me, 3rd star, you could go so many different ways here. I could go Anton Lundell with the 2 early assists, Brad Marchand with 2 goals, one of them being an empty netter, which he missed the first one and then got the second one, pulled his own Jake Gensel, maybe like a little Olympic hangover for him there. But I'm going to go with Sam Reinhart. What he did defensively whenever the Leafs had the puck on their sticks and then to keep it in the O-zone, that was more impressive than some of the accounting stats that we saw throughout the night. So I got to give Sam Reinhart his flowers. Also, scary moment in the game where Aaron Ekblad went to the box where he was checked on the shoulder and then hit his head on the boards, but still stayed on the ice for that penalty kill for the Panthers, as it was the Panthers who ended up going to the box for a double minor for roughing. But Sam Reinhart, great defensively on the puck. 2nd star of the game, Sergei Bobrovsky, 28 of 29. We were talking about the ability to see the pucks, reading the deflections well. And here's a quote from Maurice. It's been tough when it's been tough when he's sitting and not having shots for a while after not playing for three weeks, but he's always done that. Close quote. So great insight from Paul Maurice there. The number one star, Evan Rodrigues, the 9 shots on goal, the great defense on the penalty kill. Obviously, we spoke about him playing center and having to play that role. First career shorthanded goal, and also the play on Willem Nylander, which Nylander, he could have backhanded that puck right back to Austin Matthews. Instead, he tried forcing it to the left, a right-handed shot with a right-handed shot, defending it. So it makes it a lot easier when it's on your forehand there to break that puck away from Nylander on that shorthanded chance, which Erod, beautiful move on Joseph Woll to easily convert. But your 3 stars of the game, Nick.
My 3rd star, I got to give it to my boy, Anton Lundell, for coming out with 2 quick assists, but also playing defensive responsibly. Definitely is one of those players that, again, is growing, and he's growing into his own. And I think he is still fitting the moniker of Baby Barkov, and maybe not to that level, but I think he's getting there, and he's about to beat his own assist record and I think points record this year. So give him that. Second, I am going to give it to Evan Rodrigues. The fact that this guy's been through so much this season with the injuries and still playing, and then scoring that disgusting goal shorthanded was amazing. I'm kind of flabbergasted that was his first shorthanded goal. So, I mean, hats off to him. He's been a warrior this season, and I hope Florida can, I guess, do something in appreciation for him, like get into the playoffs. And then my 1st star is going to be Bob. So many games this season where if the Panthers just had goaltending or they were able to clear rebounds and everything, how many more games that they may have won and how many more points they would have gotten. And for Bob to just come in and basically nail this game down and basically set the tone, because Florida does need to go on a run, and he's got to be at the forefront of it. So if he's stopping pucks like he did tonight, I think TSN and Sportsnet are going to have a lot of problems reporting on him later on.
Which, again, I don't believe ultimately that he does get traded, but I understand why it's a conversation for Sergei Bobrovsky there. But Anton Lundell, I'm just looking at the stats for him, 3 points away from tying his career high, and now he's 3 goals away from passing his career high there. So just there's a lot of time for him to break both of those, and three more minutes as far as time on ice. 2.5 for him, and his faceoff percentage hasn't really dropped off from his career high. He's actually above his average by over 1% there. So this is really a stepping forward type of season for Anton Lundell. So big ups to him there. So gotta give him a lot of credit. Here's another stat that I saw that Steve Goldstein actually brought up. The Panthers, before tonight's game, when they lost by 4+ goals in the previous game, 6-0. Now they made it 7 here. I don't understand this team sometimes. And that includes the game that we were not really happy in Carolina. And then they respond the very next day in Washington. That was one of those podcasts that we were those are the one shows that we want to forget going on the air based on just how the Panthers perform. But honestly, credit to them how they just don't let it linger more than just one game. So credit to Florida for that. Let's talk about the moment when we knew the game was won. Has to be the Evan Rodrigues shorthanded goal, right? At least that is for me.
Man, that was quick. I'm a little off guard with that. Yeah, it has to be, just because I think that goal literally put, the Leafs like, we're done. Like, yeah, we're gonna get yelled at in the locker room and we're gonna do what we can, but how demoralizing would it be that you're fighting for your playoff lives and then one of your best players just coughs it up like that, and then your goalie gets his jockstrap just ripped up into the goal. So yeah, I'll agree with you. I'm more long-winded about it, but it had to be the Rodrigues goal.
Yeah, and I just think about multi-goal leads. I mean, the worst lead to have is the two goal lead, but then when it's three like that, the likelihood of a comeback. I know there was a lot of time in the game after. I just think with the fact that the Florida Panthers were coming into their first game from the Olympic break, which I had an episode yesterday of how whenever teams have send more guys to the Olympics and then they come back, they're actually hotter than they are colder because of the fact that they played. So really, this could really accelerate the Panthers at the start of the gate here coming out of the break. And for Florida, here's the thing: uh, the fact that Toronto scored really early on in the third period, and the fact that it was 2 seconds left in the power play, and that you still had it was still somewhat within reach, even though it was over there. It really helped the Panthers not relax there going into the third, which it was tilted as far as the shot attempts, but as far as landing on goal, the Panthers were still kind of threatening. And we saw an outstanding chance from Evan Rodrigues on the Evan Rodrigues on a Carter Verhaeghe forecheck where he was set up nicely in the slot. Evan Rodrigues was also taking shifts on the fourth line with Cole Schwint exiting the game early at Toulouse Derainen, which they were able to still get some good shifts together as well. So the fact that it wasn't even though it was one goal that shortened the deficit, it didn't make the Panthers necessarily comfortable, which I can be pretty content about.
It's like almost like the first time this season that we could be content about having a multi-goal lead. I can't remember the last time this season where I felt that good. And it just goes to show how important certain players are that you're missing. We talked ad nauseum about them, but I think the team now understands, like, hey, there is probably light at the end of the tunnel with these injuries and everything, but we have to do our part first and then bring them in so they can help us. But we have to do ours first. And I think right now with the defensive core that they have, I'm still afraid of it in a not a good way. Just because I think there's a lot of inexperience or there's too old, I'll say. And it's not really going to be into the Panthers style. And once they get some of the blue liners back, I think you're going to see a completely different team and a team that will be able to hold on to those leads. So, as far as the fact that you brought up, I would have thought the opposite as far as like the Olympians coming back and being hotter. I feel like with all the Panthers coming back, with how much hockey they've played, they would have been even more tired. Like, dude, I need a break. And here's Matthew Tkachuk, going to Miami Airport and doing everything he can to celebrate, taking Matthews out. Like, you would think that these guys would be tired, and I thought Matthew looked pretty energetic tonight. Considering everything, but he needs a good night of sleep tonight too. So.
Yeah.
But thanks for sharing that fact. I honestly would not have thought of that.
Yeah, Matthew Tkachuk had the most sleep that he's had the night before as he was back celebrating the elbow room last night, and he actually set up a nice chance off a give and go play to Jeff Petrie right in front of the net, but there's a lot of sticks there that really prevented that chance. And Matthew having the empty net goal as far as that, so adding on to that 3 shots on net here, so just getting his game back, and honestly, those extra games in the Olympics really helps that for him. But speaking of the Panthers and their injuries, we do have some good news regarding those, as the Panthers will be have one game right before they hit the road. Can they keep this up going into the second end of a back-to-back, and now this 4-game road trip coming up in the East? We'll discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board and thinking about which team can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year, whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab the conference title. It adds an extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And now, not only can your picks cash, but it also sends you to the finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started and use your profit boost on an NBA future and get started and get for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Third and final segment here on this Friday, February 27th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. Once again, here with Nich Fairbanks on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. During that ad break, I was thinking a little bit because last year, the Panthers, first game out of the Four Nations, poor performance against the Seattle Kraken. The Panthers surged after that. And they were adjusting with temporary life without Matthew Tkachuk and what they were going to do after. Yeah, they hadn't made the Seth Jones trade as of yet. And they didn't really make any of the other moves as far as depth pieces for Nico Sturm, as well as who damn it, the backup goaltender. Brad Marchand. No, the backup goaltender. Not only Brad Marchand, but he plays for Utah. I forget. His name is slipping my mind. For him, but that's besides the point. But for the Panthers here, I'm the fact that they didn't sustain even worse injuries, even though there's our speculations on Brad Marchand about how his health is looking. Great to see he got 2 goals. I just think that for the Panthers, it could really truly help. But at the same time, I'm looking at this end of the season a lot differently because I'm seeing this as wins are a bonus, and the fact that the players who are Vitek Vanacek was the name.
Yeah.
Now it's coming back to me. Which the Panthers getting wins are a bonus now from here on, and the fact that Paul Maurice gave us a very encouraging update that every single injured player, with the exception of Alexander Barkov, will be on the team in their next trip as it starts on Long Island at 6:30 on Sunday night. And not a guarantee that everyone plays in a specific order, but a chance for that. And for, whenever an injured player is coming back and at least traveling with the team and at least getting that groove back of being in a different city, in a different bed, that is for a group, that just lifts the spirits of a team.
No, I think that as well. And I think you brought it up that, they, had a really sluggish game against, coming out of the Four Nations. And then, they come out, this game and they really take it to Toronto. I think the storylines are a little bit different, or at least the projections are a little bit different because they were solid in a playoff spot. They're not in one right now. So I think like the limits, or I guess like it's slim pickings right now. They have to win. So as you're saying, wins are they're a treat or per se. I just want the damn playoffs. I know I'm going to be boring and I'm going to be saying this a lot. Like to me, it's still playoffs or bust. I don't think that this team has anything to learn by losing or getting another draft pick. They're not going to get McKenna. I'm sorry, everybody. Like if you guys were thinking we were getting a top 10 pick and going to get McKenna, it's not gonna happen like that. So rather, let's win as many games as we can. Let's make this interesting, and let's see what the rest of the league has going on, because who knows? I mean, I'm still interested in a few of the storylines going on. Like number one, is Detroit gonna have their usual march where they're not the greatest team? Is Buffalo still gonna be this hot team that they've, put together over the last couple of months after, Kevin Adams, was released? Or are they going to finally come down to earth, which I think it's going to happen? But as far as the Panthers go, I think every win means more to this team for confidence level, but also it buys them a little bit more time for, I guess, letting Barkov know, like, hey, you can come back this season. We need you. Or, hey, we did the best we could. Let's just wait till next season.
And just the bonds that you built for the guys who have won the cup, even if they're on expiring deals, it's like, what kind of message are you sending to the room if you do sell a guy like AJ Greer at the deadline, which I don't think you'll get too much for him. And even if you do give him a slight raise in the offseason, it's not going to destroy their future either way. So I'm just, we gotta here on the show, we gotta list every scenario and every possibility on what the Panthers are going to do. It's either stand pat or do a soft sell for them. And I just think for cap reasons, you got to sell a few players who will just help you get under, or at least send guys through waivers there. And the numbers aren't that difficult as far as Jones, Kulikov, Nosek, those guys coming back for the Panthers here. And by the way, after they lost that game against Seattle last year, they went on a 6-game winning streak there. So that momentum can really, truly keep going for guys who have just played that extra hockey. And the thing is, the Panthers had less guys last year because there's four nations while you had multiple here in the Olympics and 10 totals. And the fact that 7 guys have gone on top here. But I'm sold on Buffalo. I really am. For what Alex Line is outstanding for the season that he's had. That Josh Doan trade, even though the main part of that trade was Michael Kesselring to at least have someone play with Owen Power on the second pair. Josh Doan has been a great story, and he got an extension. Even if you can't agree with an extension for Alex Tuch, you need to keep him for this playoff run. You cannot, with that 14-year playoff drought, you have to try to keep him. So I think that you're going to see a Panthers team they're going to fight like hell against this Buffalo Sabres team. Right now, they're 1-2 against this Sabres team. A really poor loss in the last one, blowing that 2-goal lead at home in the very first game in February. But man, could this really change the fortune? Also, before we come to you guys again, the Panthers will start their road trip on Long Island, nationally televised game, by the way, on ESPN. And Matthew Schaefer, he just set the record for most goals by an 18-year-old defenseman. He got 2 within a minute tonight against Montreal. And the Panthers, they played him well. The last time they faced them, that was during the first week of December, where they won 4-1 there, and just they gave New York absolutely nothing. And this is the second, and they're going to face New York twice in the same month. Later on, they'll be back on Long Island for a matinee game. But listen, the narrative can change. And Pierre LeBrun on TSN on Insider Trading said today, if the Panthers go 5-0 or 4-1, then chances are they're going to stand pat at the deadline. Anything below, all bets are off.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, the margin of error is so slim right now. Like I'm not gonna say they have to win out. They have 24 games left, and they just won one tonight. They basically have to now win like 17 or 18 games to meet like what the projection is supposed to be at, like 101 or maybe even 99 points. So you have this slim margin of error, and you have to think about your future. Is it better just to stand pat and keep these guys together and then, hope for the best? Or do you soft sell, like you said, get some assets back, not a lot, but get some assets back and maybe use that in the future for trades? It's going to be a tough thing. I think if you're going to make a trade and like, hey, let's say Florida drops the next couple of games, unfortunately, like they lose to Buffalo tomorrow, and then they go to Long Island on Sunday and they blow that game. Panthers have to win the next 3. Like that has to happen. They can't lose 2 games in a row. They always have to fight back. So just you don't have the luxury anymore. It's kind of like back in 22, 23. They started playing playoff hockey, back in January?
Yeah.
They have to play playoff hockey now. And let's see if the team without Barkov, without the two defensemen that they're missing in Jones and Kulikov, let's see if they can do it.
Yeah, and I just calculated what the Panthers would have to do even with winning tonight. They'd have to go on a 771 points percentage, which that would put them at 19-5-0. They would have to go somewhere around there.
Yep.
We've seen stranger things before, but again, one thing that Paul Maurice said this morning, win your day. Just win your day. And it's a tough Buffalo team. The Panthers haven't fared well against them, but one of the games that they played on the road against them this season was very impressive. But the last home game is still the one that is like, man, and the fact that it was early and it disappeared early. That's the worst part about that one, where you could have really made a big swing in the Eastern Conference. And and I'll tell you the truth. Before the Olympic break, I turned on scoreboard notifications for the teams ahead of the Panthers. I haven't done that. I have not done that coming out of this Olympic break. I just want to see if the Panthers can string wins themselves first before I do that again. Just control you.
So am I rubbing off on you a little bit? Like, is there the still glimmer of hope there? Because, listen, they have what? 1, 2, and I'm reading off my computer screen. Sorry, I got to put the glasses and everything. They have about 3 or 4 games next month that are all against their division rivals. They have to win every single one. And then going into April, they have another 4. So they have to go 8-0 in the division. And a lot of those teams that they are going to try and climb over, like you have Columbus, which I think they have to play twice. New Jersey,
twice in a week.
Yep. And you don't have to worry about New Jersey so much, but you have to win the games that you're expected to win as well. But it doesn't hurt to win all your divisional games and kind of rewrite that story for this season.
Yeah. Talk to me at the deadline, and then we'll see if I'm positive.
Next week.
Yeah. We'll see. Which will be less than 12. Next time you and I talk on the air will be less than 12 hours. Not necessarily 12 hours, but less than 24 hours before the deadline, and then we could truly reevaluate then. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on another edition of Fairbanks Friday. Tell everybody where they can find you online, my friend.
Great win tonight, and Armando, thanks for having me on again. You guys can follow me on X at Prudential0. Let's keep that light of the tunnel open. Let's make the playoffs, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and see you next week.
See you next week.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.